start this video out, I want to share with you a secret that Epic Games has been hiding from the Fortnite community for years now. A secret that will challenge the very way you look at not only the game, but life itself. A secret so sinister that revealing it to the public has the potential to start revolutions. I'm taking a huge risk here by revealing the secret to you guys, but it's one that absolutely needs to be heard. And that secret is this. Fortnite's islands are pretty big. Okay. Maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic, but you know, it's true. All 5 of the Battle Royale islands we've gotten so far have been massive in size. And, well, you don't really have to be a video game programmer to understand why this is. When you have up to 100 individual players all spawning on the same map, you want to give said players plenty of options to find loot and resources for the coming battle. If there were only 1 or 2 locations to land at, it would be a cluster, and the only winners would be the players who got their hands on a weapon first. The large map size also serves as a way to include a variety of different landmarks and points of interest. Since the map is so huge, you can basically go wild with the themes of each of these said locations and not have to worry about consistency. You can have ancient temples at one location and amusement parks at another. One side of the map could be covered in snow, another in sand, and another in lush forests. The sky's the limit, really. Well, kinda. You see, there is a bit of a downside to Fortnite's maps being so huge. And that's the fact that, inevitably, some locations are going to be passed up for other popular landmarks, if not forgotten entirely. Like, seriously, when was the last time you landed at Snooty Steps instead of, say, the Underworld or Mount Olympus? I'd venture a guess that most of you haven't landed there since they got rid of Peter Griffin. Okay, maybe that's not the best example since older points of interest are typically forgotten about come the introduction of new seasons, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. And that's only in regards to locations that are explicitly named on the map. There are tons of other named landmarks that can easily be forgotten about, on top of there being locations that aren't even named at all. And it's these locations, these passed over or forgotten about landmarks, that really interest me. Which is exactly what we're going to be discussing in today's video. I'm going to be taking a look at 3 of the oddest and most underrated places currently located on the Chapter 5 Season 2 map. I'll go into detail about these locations and their surrounding landscape, as well as how they contribute to making the map feel alive. I'll also be sure to point out if any of these landmarks have any interesting lore behind them, as well as what that could mean for the Fortnite story as a whole. Yes, I assure you, it does get that deep. Before we begin though, I kinda gotta do the whole YouTuber shtick. If you end up liking this video and want to see me explore more odd and underrated locations on the Fortnite map in the future, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to reach 10k subscribers by the end of the year, so your support would greatly be appreciated. But with that all said and done, let's finally get this video started with this first underrated location. The first area we're going to be taking a look at in today's video isn't necessarily underrated, but in comparison to the rest of the locations on the map, it can be easily forgotten about. Located north of Grand Glacier is Breezy Coast, a landmark that gets its name thanks to the 4 massive wind turbines planted in the sea. If you're as Fortnite-brained as I am, you no doubt recognize that these wind turbines bear a striking resemblance to the ones that used to inhabit the Chapter 3 island. Specifically the Windbreaker's point of interest. Right below the turbines is a barge holding a variety of different cargo containers, with one of them containing a chest, a safe, and a number of ammo boxes. It's a pretty solid way to get yourself set up at the beginning of a match. Before we continue with the rest of the Breezy Coast landmarks, I want to quickly take a look at a small island that lies northwest of the turbines. This area is extremely interesting to me thanks to it housing a ton of props from previous seasons, specifically ones from Chapter 2. We've got statues and sea life from Cloister Castle, a chair and golden ornament from Colossal Coliseum, a giant ball of yarn from Caddy Corner, a painting of the Agency, a tomato head statue, a pinboard with pictures of the character Sky, and a Captain Carp bait and tackle sign The Captain Carp sign features a group of coral buddies next to it, who will sing their iconic tune when you get close to them. Now, this island, and the rest of Breezy Coast for that matter, have been part of the map since the beginning of Chapter 5. I bring this up since, in retrospect, I think it's pretty obvious that this little island was teasing the return of Midas from the very beginning of the chapter. I mean, you have the painting of the agency, Meowsco's ball of yarn, the pictures of Sky. The other props don't really lend themselves that well to the Midas theme, but the general Chapter 2 vibe of the island, the same chapter Midas was introduced in, should be proof enough of what I'm trying to get across. Anyways, back to Breezy Coast. The last point of interest we're going to be taking a look at here is this massive oil rig that can be accessed using the zip line connecting these two landmarks. Immediately upon entering the building, we can see it's littered with multiple different computers and terminals. I presume these are here to help monitor the activities that take place at this location. I don't know, I've never actually been inside an oil rig, so I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark here. Also, there's this cute little stack of objects resting on a trolley. Neat. Heading upstairs reveals to us the main workspace of the oil rig. There's a few desks with computers on them, a number of different couches, lockers, a fridge full of snacks, and even a dartboard for entertainment. Pretty cozy little location, all things considered. Outside of the oil rig is where the majority of weapons and consumables will spawn, as well as a guaranteed weapon vending machine and slurp barrels. Heading underneath the oil rig, we're greeted with yet another barge. Alongside the typical shipping containers, this barge is carrying a reboot van, as well as a crane that seems to have fished a tanker of slurp out of the ocean. This tanker is a perfect way to help your squad mates get back up on their feet after rebooting them, and the vending machine above ground guarantees they'll at least have a fighting chance going forwards. All in all, Breezy Coast is, in my opinion, a fascinating part of Chapter 5's map. Despite all the loot that can be found here, as well as the various healing avenues, I rarely ever see anyone taking advantage of this location. If I had to take a guess as to why, I'd pin the reason down on the fact that Breezy Coast rests on the edge of the map. Most Fortnite players have become accustomed to ignoring the outskirts of Fortnite's islands over the years, as they typically don't yield that much in the loot department. But the outskirts of the map is actually what I want to highlight next when it comes to this video. And I'm specifically going to be taking a look at the outskirts of this season's new Underworld biome. The first thing of interest I found along the outskirts was this quaint little outdoor dining area by the sea. 4 strands of decorative lights surround the dining table, giving off an almost romantic aura to the whole thing. I couldn't tell you why this is here, only that I think it's pretty cute. Heading southwest of the dining area is one of the many scrying pools used to initiate this season's story quests. While there's a good chance some of you have visited the scrying pool in the past, have you ever actually examined the immediate area around it? If we were to keep heading west, we'll find that an unfortunate seaman's sailboat has gotten trapped in this little lake area. If we were to keep heading west, we'll find a lonely fire pit resting at the foot of an elevated chunk of rock. A lot of these lone fire pits can be found throughout the Underworld, with another one located in between the previously mentioned dining area and scrying pool. I'm not entirely sure why these fire pits are located at the edge of the map, but if I had to come up with a reason for why they are, I'd say they're being used as a way to guide ships to land from the sea. That would also explain why there's quite a bit of boats washed up on the shoreline, such as this one located north of the dining area, and this one located further south of the scrying pool. A few feet away from this boat is a massive archway built into the cliffside. A lone reboot van sits inside the arch, whilst another fire pit rests upon it. I got the vibe that this archway was meant to serve as a sort of lookout point for the inhabitants of the Underworld, whoever they may be. If we were to climb up the cliffside this archway connects to, we'll come face to face with one of the map's many bunkers. Pretty neat that you could completely miss this whole monument in a normal match due to the importance of claiming the bunker first. Once again, we're going to continue south until we reach this particular area on the map. Now, this part of the map is especially interesting to me given its environmental storytelling. This area contains a lone tree that seems to have taken root in the middle of a cursed infused pond. As we can clearly see, prolonged exposure to the underworld water has caused this tree to mutate in a strange way. Its roots have grown so big that they're literally bursting out of the ground, ensnaring in it a variety of different items. It's really uncanny to me just how similar this tree is to the reality tree from Chapter 3, Season 3, down to both of them being planted in a source of water and having ever-expanding roots. Like I said earlier, this is a great example of environmental storytelling. It makes me wonder what other objects and/or people could be affected by the river Styx. But that's going to do it for the outskirts of the underworld, or at least the most interesting areas I discovered. Overall, while it might not be as interesting or as detailed as Breezy Coast, I still think there's a lot of merit to be found from these locations. Landmarks like the mutated tree and dining area add a lot of life to an otherwise uninhabited world. Not to mention, there's a sizable amount of loot to be found in these areas. Consider heading here the next time you jump off the battle bus. You'll be pleasantly surprised at what you'll find. Before we move on to the third and final location of this video, I want to quickly highlight some odd locations that were too small to include in the main sections of this video. Starting out with this little fishing hut west of Rebel's Roost. The first thing to note about this location is the existence of a gas pump by this dock. Since there aren't any boats around to refuel, I decided to pollute the ocean a bit before continuing on at this location. A weapon-o-matic vending machine will always spawn outside this hut, typically containing shotguns for purchase. Inside the hut is a cozy little room with a hammock, a fridge, a gas stove, as well as a couch and coffee table. The coffee table, noticeably, has a remote on it, despite there being no television in the actual room itself. Pretty weird if you ask me. Back outside the hut is a porta potty that, upon entering, will transport you to a hidden theater room found beneath Rebel's Roost. Honestly, not the most interesting location in this video, but then again, that's kind of the whole point of this video, isn't it? Well, anyways, now we're gonna head east of Mount Olympus to what is probably my favorite location in today's video. It's another shipping barge, and oh my god, look at all this loot. Tons of ammo boxes, chests, slurp barrels, and most noticeably of all, 2 tankers full of slurp. Jesus Christ, talk about overkill. Not that I'm complaining, of course, but like, seriously, good God, that's just so much. And you want to know the best part? I have never, in my life, seen anyone else land at this location. It is quite literally a free care package at the beginning of every match. And I encourage everyone watching this video to land here the next time you boot up the game. And to close off this short little detour, we have this area north of Classy Courts known as Catcher's Cove. I believe this area used to be inhabited by the Triggerfish NPC during Season 1, on top of it being pretty close to Sergeant Winter's Island during Winterfest, which initially made it a semi-popular landing spot in the aforementioned Chapter 5 Season 1. As you can clearly see, it's a docking station for fishing ships. As you can also clearly see, it is absolutely overflowing with fishing spots. No pun intended, of course. This location, much like the previous one, is a very good location to land at the beginning of a match. Should RNGesus be on your side, you should be able to get fully set up before the first storm circle begins to close. But, with that being said, I think it's about time we moved on to the third and final underrated location of this video. The last location we'll be discussing in this video can be found towards the top of the map, just west of Classy Courts. The location in question is known as Cloister Castle, a 4-story building that rests atop an elevated island. Immediately upon entering the building, the first thing that will probably catch your eye will be the sight of tons of empty slap juice bottles littered across the floor and countertops, as well as a plethora of books and bookshelves. You know, it's pretty interesting to see slap juice bottles being referenced, given they haven't been around since Chapter 4, Season 4. Heading up to the second floor of the building will reveal a rather strange sight, that being a miniature bowling alley constructed in one of the rooms. Now, honestly, the idea of having a bowling alley in your own home is something I can get behind. That being said, whoever lives here did a horrible job at constructing the thing. There's no pit for the bowling ball to enter after it's thrown, just a solid wall. Meaning you'd be smashing your bowling balls into the house every single time you decide to play. What a huge design flaw. Strange bowling alley room aside, this floor also contains a pretty sizable balcony. Stepping out onto it, we can see that whoever owns the place has set up a small exercise area beside their speakers, which will play classic Fortnite tunes. Two obsidian statues, shaped like hound dogs, adorn the balcony. If these statues look familiar to you, that's because they were once featured at the Relentless Retreat point of interest from Chapter 4, Season 4. Pretty neat, huh? Up on the 3rd floor of the castle is a room that's overflowing with literature. Multiple piles of books are stacked up on the desk, on the floor, and on multiple different bookshelves. It seems whoever owns this place has begun to go a bit stir-crazy, given how unorganized everything is. It's also worth pointing out that this room contains a couple of ancient-looking vases, with one of them still contained inside a wooden crate. You know, that's really odd. I recognize these vases from somewhere. Wait. Yeah. I remember now. These vases could be found in the temple ruins that were added in Chapter 4, Season 3. What exactly are they doing here? Actually, now that I think about it, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. This whole place is filled to the brim with Chapter 4 references. You got the slap juice bottles, the bowling alley resembling the one found in Faulty Splits, the Last Resort statues, the Wilds faces. It's all here, plain as day. The Chapter 4 props and references don't end there though. Up on the 4th and final floor of the castle is an old gong from the Mega season, 2 swords and a shield from the Oathbound Empire, and shipping containers from the jungle biome. An interesting thing to note is that one of these containers is wedged on top of the roof of the castle, almost as if it were riffed onto the island. But the most damning Chapter 4 reference of them all can be seen hanging above this bed, a painting of the vampire Cato Thorn. The exact same portrait from the Eclipsed Estate point of interest found in the Last Resort season. Also, there's a bottle of lotion on the bed right next to a laptop. No comment. So, what exactly does all of this mean? Why are there so many Chapter 4 references here? Why the hell is there a portrait of Cato Thorn? Well, I have a theory as to what's going on. A game theory, if you will. I think that somehow Cato Thorn has returned. Somehow, the vampire survived his encounter with Shimmerdusk and the Looper and rifted his way to the Chapter 5 island, bringing with him only a sliver of his once great collection. Cato, devastated by his defeat, the loss of his empire, and the theft of his most valuable possession, the time machine, snaps and attempts to learn all he can about this island's history. His hope is to find a source of power, something, anything he can use to regain his position at the top of the food chain. Much like Valeria, he learned of this island's connection to the Olympians, as well as the existence of Pandora's box. Determined to claim the power of Pandora's box for himself, he sets off to further explore the island for the elusive artifact. But, as we all know, Valeria was ultimately the one to succeed when it came to unearthing and opening up the box, unleashing unspeakable horrors upon the island, as well as gaining the attention of Zeus and the Olympians. Cato, no doubt furious that his one chance at regaining power slipped through his claws, uses the commotion caused by the arrival of the gods to retreat back into hiding. Only this time, he doesn't return to his castle, but rather to the newly formed Underworld. After all, what better place for a vampire to hide than among the damned and the doomed? With this brand new hiding spot secured, Cato starts to, once again, plan his return. His sights set on conquering the power of the gods. That is, until he begins to hear whispers amongst the underworld of a certain king's return. The grand return of Midas comes as a shock to the vampiric heister. After all, Cato witnessed firsthand Midas's death when he traveled back in time to claim their golden gift for his collection. And yet, much like Cato himself, he was able to cheat death and escape Hades' grasp. reuniting himself with his old family and crew, coming to the realization that he's not only horribly outmatched and outgunned, but that Midas would most definitely want revenge on the vampire for his actions. Kato decides to remain in hiding for the time being, which is where his story ends. For now, at least. Oh my god. I really just wrote a whole bunch of Kato Thorn fanfiction for a video that was supposed to be about underrated locations on Chapter 5's map. Whoopsie daisy. Well, anyways, even if you want to disregard the latter half of my theory, I think the first half of it, that being that Kato survived and set up shop at Cloister Castle, is undeniably true. Like, seriously, why else would they include all these Chapter 4 references in this one singular location? The Kato Thorn portrait is especially revealing. The Fortnite developers could have used any of the various painting assets found in the game, and yet they decided to go with this one specifically? Yeah, Kato Thorn is alive, there's no doubt about it. But with that rant of mine all said and done, I think it's probably a good time to wrap up the video. Thanks a ton for watching and making it this far. If you like this video and want to see me explore other hidden gems on the Fortnite map, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Who knows, I might turn this into a series every time a new season drops. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and check out my socials. That's gonna do it from me, so as always, until next time, I'll see you in the next one.